Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Cricketwala Chronicles with Ayaz Memon. Hi, this is Pooja from the Fan Garage and you're listening to the Cricketwala Chronicles with Ayaz. In today's episode, we're going to discuss on how, in its stated mission, the IPL really was a domestic tournament created to really help domestic cricket, even though it was international in its flavour, appeal and following. And whilst 8-9 editions of IPL have unfolded right in front of our eyes, what really was taking shape and in the minds of young Indian talent, young Indian cricketers, playing for the very first time, most of them, on such a large platform. I mean, it is a stated mission for IPL that the IPL is a domestic tournament to help Indian cricketers. We've seen some big names, but we've also seen some unheard of names and how they've gone on to really
become big names.
Become big and even bigger. They've been called up for national duties.
Yeah.
And, they've never played before on such large platforms. Really, I ask, what did we see unfolding when it came to young Indian cricketers?
So look, I think it was one of the stated objectives of the BCCI and when the IPL started that, this is one great way to unearth young talent, and young talent which will come through from the rural areas where the talent scouts will go, or the smaller, the Mufassal areas. Then they'll be put through academies where they'll get, enlightened coaching, sports medicine, everything else, which is needed to make for a good cricketer. And then they'll get the opportunity to rub shoulders with some of the biggest names playing international cricket when they come into the team or they become part of the squad.
Right.
And then if they're good enough, then they get an opportunity to play for the franchise.
For India,
that's the kind of roadmap which was envisioned. Now, there can always be a complaint that, hey, has it really played out like that? How many players can you think of that have come through from each franchise? In 9 years, has each franchise thrown up 20, 25 players each? Perhaps not. Certainly not, in fact.
But that doesn't go to say that they haven't thrown up any names at all.
True. So I'm saying, look, while this was a massive commercial kind of enterprise, there was also the altruistic end to it, or the one aspect to it, which is really what the BCCI's job is, to promote and nurture sport.
Right.
And therefore, they had to put it out. Otherwise, there would not have been acceptance at all. Now, whether it's only lip service or whether it's genuinely meant and therefore delivering some fine young talent is a matter of debate. But I think actually there is enough evidence to suggest that the IPL has helped in a fairly big way for young talent to find its feet or to come through. Look, ultimately, the job of finding young talent is still vested in the state cricket associations,
right,
largely.
Yes.
The IPL, as franchise owners who are also commercially driven, will expend or extend their efforts to some level, to that level,
Yes.
Beyond that, it still has to be the state cricket association and everything else associated with it, the clubs and so on and so forth.
Right, the domestic tournaments.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the IPL can then, or the franchise owners can dip into them.
Right.
And put them through, well, for want of a better phrase, like a finishing school through their academies and then into their teams.
Yeah.
So what we have seen, so let's look at certain examples who've come through and therefore gone on to play for their countries. From the first edition of the IPL,
yeah,
the winners were Rajasthan Royals.
Yes.
And some of the names that come to my mind, the captain was a retired player,
right,
Shane Warne.
Shane Warne, yes.
But he had a very young team under him, of whom a fair number of players did so well that they went on to play for India.
Yes.
So,
yes.
for instance, Shane Watson.
Yes.
And then there was Yusuf Pathan, who actually, half of India didn't even know that Irfan Pathan had a
brother called Yusuf Pathan.
And an older brother.
Yes.
So Yusuf Pathan became a household name because of his big hitting in the first season of the IPL.
For the Rajasthan team.
Yeah, for the Rajasthan team, and then went on to become part of the
Indian team.
Though he had played in the 2007 World Cup, remember?
Yes.
In fact, he opened in the final against Pakistan.
Yes.
And he hit a 6 in the first over. But it was the IPL which
really brought the spotlight on him. Yes.
Then there was young Ravindra Jadeja, who actually can be said that because of the IPL he got the heavy attention that brought him, or at least fast tracked his
Yeah, I mean, Shane Warne called him a superstar, isn't it?
Shane Warne called him a superstar. There was Pakistan's Sohail Tanveer, the fast bowler with the very awkward action, left-arm fast bowler. In those days, in the first 2 editions of the IPL, the Pakistan players were allowed, or 3 editions.
Yes.
So Sohail Tanveer became a player for Pakistan because the IPL spotlighted his talent, so to speak. And there are many such examples. One can go on and all. There have been, Dhawal Kulkarni from Mumbai, the Jasprit Bumrah now, who's playing for Mumbai. He's 22 years old. He's now playing for India. Or Hardik Pandya. So there are several such examples. There are also examples like Manpreet Goni, who would never have been heard of, played for Punjab, was then picked up by Chennai Super Kings.
Right.
And, Dhoni kind of rhymed with Goni. And it became kind of an alliteration which worked for Chennai Super Kings in that year. But the point I'm bringing is people like Manpreet Goni or Paul Valthati, who was a sensation for Punjab one season, is that while young players get the attention, it's not that they will become stars. A Ravindra Jadeja has become a star. A Sohail Tanveer has been in and out of the Pakistan team. Steve Smith, who also was, came through in a sense because of the IPL.
Yes.
Has gone on to captain
Australia today, yes.
And he's amongst the brightest young cricketers in the world.
Right.
Or the best. And, but a Paul Valthati was a one-season wonder. A Manpreet Goni, I don't think he plays for the IPL. Leave aside playing for India. He's not part of the IPL this year.
This season, yes.
So, while it does bring young talent, attention on the young talent, gives them a platform to perform, it's not necessary that this is a hop, step and jump to the Indian team or the Australian team or any other national squad. You still have to perform and perform over a period of time. And if you're just kind of taken up by your own sense of importance in the first season of success that you may have had in the IPL, then it's just too bad. Or if you're not taken up by a sense of importance and therefore, digress into other things, but you're just not good enough, if the ability is not there. Because remember, sport at this level, you can get sorted out in season 2 or season 3. Rivals, opponents start working on your success and say,
yes,
hey, how do I counter him?
Yes, you start getting mapped and analyzed.
You start getting mapped and analyzed, and people learn to play you better or counter you better.
Correct.
And if you're not good enough, if you're not honing your own skills, if you're not improving season after season, then you'll be left behind or just kind of, drop off the horizon, as may have happened, as happened with Paul Valthati and Goni, for instance.
Right, yes. But, that said, Ayaz, isn't it also a very overwhelming opportunity? I mean, to be rubbing shoulders with people you've sort of grown up watching, admiring, respecting, the likes of Sachin, and sharing a dressing room with the likes of Sachin or Dravid, or performing in front of large audiences for young players up until then who've only performed in domestic tournaments in front of negligible crowds. I mean, to be actually withstand that pressure to perform, is that so easy?
I think, look, overwhelming for a while. I think in any case, Pooja, in young India today, nobody gets overwhelmed. It's the older guys like us who get overwhelmed by everything still. The young players actually are, pretty strident about their talent, and they want to find a place for themselves in the sun. They may or may not succeed. Sometimes you might you might think that they are cocky to a fault.
And then that eventually can lead to their fall too.
Yeah, it can. So, I think my experience has been actually, yes, there will be a period of time when you are overwhelmed. You suddenly come across sitting in the same dugout with a Sachin Tendulkar or a Rahul Dravid or an MS Dhoni. Mm-hmm. You're bound to get overwhelmed when you're 17, 18, even 20, 21. But the other side to it is you learn so quickly because you're rubbing shoulders with the best.
Yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate learning ground as well as finishing school, as you rightly called it.
So, I mean, Virat Kohli, he's under 19 captain, gets fast-tracked into the Indian team, plays the 2011 World Cup, and is part of the winning team. I don't think he was overwhelmed for too long.
That's true, yes.
And he's got to a stage now where at 27, 28, people are getting overwhelmed by him. That's how fast his progress has been. So, players like Sarfaraz Khan, who's now playing for RCB.
Yes.
Or even Arman Jafar.
To be making an IPL debut at 17, I mean.
And look at his attitude. You never thought that, he reminds me of a very young Javed Miandad. In fact, in a lot of what he does, he appears, as, gung-ho about every situation.
Yeah.
Always
ready to hit a six.
Ready to hit a six in more ways than one. He's ready to take on players.
Right.
He doesn't need to do it beyond the limit.
Yes.
But the measure of self-confidence is enormous. Then there are people like Arman Jafar, who's also, I mean, for him, look at what used to happen earlier. When, the Tendulkar phenomenon, which changed the shape of Indian cricket, is because he became an international cricketer at 16 and a half.
Yes.
Before that, you had to go through schools cricket, university cricket, qualify for, Ranji Trophy, first-class cricket,
yes.
and then hope to play international cricket.
Right.
Sachin did all of that. He didn't play universities cricket, but he played schools cricket. He played first-class cricket, but within a year and a half, he was playing for India.
Right.
And earlier, when kids were told by their parents, you better concentrate on, your studies, graduate, and then we'll play cricket alongside.
Yeah.
They changed, the worldview changed with Sachin Tendulkar's coming, what I call the Tendulkar phenomenon in Indian cricket. You go to Shivaji Park or any of the Maidans anywhere in India today,
yes.
young mums and dads are telling the coaches, hamare ladke ko Tendulkar banao. Forget whether he studies or not. In a sense, the IPL is replicating that. Parents of cricketers and young cricketers themselves are saying, I don't know whether I'll play for Delhi or Mumbai or Bengal or Hyderabad or any of these Ranji Trophy teams. But if I get a chance to play for an IPL team,
yes,
then at least I'll be noticed, I'll get a livelihood, and, that's how the pressure is building.
I mean, it's almost like it's at par to want to play for an IPL franchise as it is, of course, to ultimately play for Team India.
I think Team India still remains the
of
desired.
Of course, and it will always be. But there are such few spots and so many takers.
Though there are, issues regarding whether the league is helping or not, especially in players from countries like West Indies and all, which...
We'll come to that, of course.
Yeah, but at least in India, yes, you want to play for the Indian team, but how... look, we're a country of 125 crore, of which everybody is 124 crore plus, 99.9 lakh, whatever, are cricket obsessed.
Yeah.
And therefore, there are so many young players wanting to get into the Indian team, and you can only select a squad of 15 or 16. Ultimately, it's a club of 70, 80 players from whom the selectors are looking at to choose the Indian team.
Right.
Whether it's for test matches or ODIs or T20 internationals. There's a lot of jostling going on for places.
Correct.
Now, how do you find your place? How do you find the attention? How do you get the selectors' bandwidth to focus on you?
On you.
The IPL affords that opportunity. Because the IPL has got 8 teams, squads of 22 to 27, 28 players each.
Correct.
And of whom at least 16, 17 are going to be young talent from India.
Yes, uncapped players.
Yes. etc., etc. So that's their great opportunity, and they're all jostling for places there.
Correct.
And if they get an opportunity which helps them get like it's a bit like snakes and ladders, like I mentioned. Paul Valthati one season was touted as an India player. He had not played enough for Mumbai or for West Zone, but was touted immediately as an India player in limited overs cricket because he had a terrific season for Punjab. He was hitting the ball out of the ground every time.
Right.
But the next season he was back to, starting blocks.
Yes.
So that can happen. Manpreet Goni was touted as a possibly India bowler.
Correct.
In limited overs cricket, but he is nowhere to be seen now.
Well,
so,
he did make the national team.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm saying you get into the short list because of the IPL, and that's what young players think, and perhaps rightly, that at least let me get there.
Yes.
And then, of course,
then ultimately it's your performance, the consistency.
There are other determinants which come into play.
Correct.
So in that sense, when you look at the vast spread of people who have come, and it's fairly vast, and it's not just about Indian players, as I mentioned. We mentioned Shane Watson,
Sean
Steve
Marsh.
Smith, Sean Marsh,
Yes.
Aaron Finch.
Yes.
And Sohail Tanvir. So these are the players from overseas who shone, and there are lots of West Indies players, but they ran into problems. But from India, a lot of players have come in, and they still continue to come in.
And yet you had someone like Praveen Tambe, who made it.
That's the other end.
That's the other end completely, making a debut at 42.
And then also qualifying to play for Mumbai.
Yes, and then with his immense wicket-taking spell, he was man of the tournament one season.
Yeah, he was.
Yes,
and the IPL and then also the other leagues by extension, they afford this fabulous contrast that you can be ageless because it's such a short game. Like Brad Hogg is playing in the IPL for KKR this year at the age of 44.
Yeah,
his greatest qualification is, apart from the fact that he was a fine bowler, but he would never have played beyond 34, 35, 36 for Australia or been in the running. Now, at age 44, what he's got going for him is very good fitness. He's still very fit and agile, and great enthusiasm. His passion overflows.
Yes.
And that is considered good enough by the franchise owners to keep him in the team. The fact that Kolkata relies so heavily on spinners because of the Eden Garden pitch is a plus point for him. But I'm saying him and Praveen Tambe, where would these guys have ever had an opportunity to play at this level ever?
I remember talking once with Tambe and, after his superb performance in one of the matches for Rajasthan, and, everyone was asking, at 42 with no real great professional cricket experience behind you. I mean, you only ever played local gully cricket.
From club cricket.
Club cricket.
Yeah.
Where does this great spin action come from?
Yeah.
And you know what he said? For all the riding that I've done to and from D.Y. Patil Stadium and negotiating the traffic in Mumbai, and he rode a bike.
Yes.
And all that shifting gears and bike, he's saying my wrist muscles are so strong.
Correct.
That therein lies the secret to my spin magic.
And also when you maneuver through Mumbai traffic, you learn to bowl the dusra and the tisra in any case.
Yeah, and so there are some benefits to having older players too.
So Pooja, the thing we've said, there's 15, 16-year-olds, there are these 42, 44-year-olds who are there. There's an opportunity for both sides. Obviously, it's loaded far more heavily in favor of the younger players. The franchises, every franchise won't choose 4 Brad Hoggs or 4 Praveen Tambes.
There aren't that many actually.
There aren't that many. So while it's a great platform, I must spell out here that it's not a guarantee that you will get into the Indian team or any national team. You still have to do well.
Yes.
You may be fast-tracked into fame, but if you're not good enough, you get exposed very
brutally. Well, ultimately, it's performance that counts. There's
not just performance. You get brutally exposed.
Yes.
Because the IPL, more than any other format, just compels instant opinion making.
Correct.
Not just from the fans, but also from coaches, from franchise owners. The guy has not done well. He's dumped next year. Nobody wants to spend money on a non-performing asset.
Yeah, and he's actually benched for the rest of the season and then dumped next year. But of course that's the scenario on the Indian home front. Let's also see when we come back after this short break how it was actually playing out for players in West Indies and New Zealand. The IPL effect and what happened there.
Rants, crazy conversations, absurd questions and everything in between. Cyrus Says is the podcast where I, Cyrus Brocha, let loose and talk to interesting people from across different walks of life. People who are available actually, not more than that. Catch new episodes every Monday on iTunes, Audio Boom or the all-new IVM podcast app. Happy listening, but only for a few minutes.
We're back after a short break and you're listening to Pooja from the Fan Garage on Cricketwala Chronicles with Ayaz. And of course, as we talk about how the IPL effect was unfolding itself on Indian turf, what exactly was the effect, and the ramifications with other boards, as we were talking about West Indies and New Zealand?
So there were concerns in other boards when the IPL began. There was not only concern, there was also consternation. The English Cricket Board or the England Cricket Board, the Australian Cricket Board, the West Indies Cricket Board more particularly, I'll talk about that. But all the cricket boards were worried because their players were going to make a beeline for the IPL because it was cash rich. It was rolling out big bucks.
Big bucks.
And bucks which were so big that players would be happy to forsake their careers, so to speak,
right?
Rather than miss the IPL.
I mean, everyone's planning their retirement in order to be able to...
apart.
Yeah, but in order to play for the IPL, they all want to be IPL fit.
You could be taking retirement prematurely.
Yes.
That was the concern.
Yes.
If you're 36 and you're opting for the IPL is a different issue.
Right.
But if you're 27, 28 and opting for the IPL over playing for your country, that's a completely different issue. It's far more serious.
Right.
So that was the concern of the board. So there was it was more pronounced in the case of the West Indies, but also where the England Cricket Board was concerned, so too Australia, New Zealand and so on. So I think some of the boards realized pretty early, like Australian Cricket Board, and they've got a very strong players association.
Yes.
Likewise, there's a international players association of which only the Indian players are not party to.
Right.
Which I must mention this here. I must emphasize this point that I find it, actually counterproductive. I think that there is a strong case for having an Indian Cricket Players Association, which used to exist. It became defunct. It was never revived. So while Indian players benefit the most, and they are actually doing very well, even domestic players, because the stakes have gone up everywhere. There's still a need for a players association to look at grievances which may arise And we'll discuss that in more detail in the next episode when we talk about the controversies.
Yes.
So if I've got accused of something, who do I go to?
Correct.
There's no players association.
There's no redressal system, yes.
And I also feel that the BCCI should have encouraged the formation of a players association, because it need not work against the board. It's just about a lobby or a pressure lobby which exists for the players who are the biggest stakeholders.
Correct.
In a sense. So that apart, the Australian Cricket Board, because the IPL season didn't conflict with their own domestic season, but their domestic season tapers off by March and first week of April.
Right.
So they were not in such a big problem in that sense. Neither too was New Zealand. But West Indies, the season overlapped with their own domestic season.
Yes.
England, it overlaps at least the first few weeks of the English season.
Correct.
So they were very reluctant to allow their players to participate in the IPL. And you've seen that actually English players have been, conspicuous by their absence, so
yes,
to speak.
Yes, up until this season, actually.
Up until the season. In the past, we had Kevin Peterson come and play and Andrew Flintoff, or not play because they got injured.
Yes.
But it's been a struggle for them. They've had to fight with the English cricket authorities.
Correct.
To come and play, and that's one of the reasons why Kevin Peterson is where he is today.
Yes.
But the West Indies suffered the most because their season coincided almost directly with the IPL. April, May is when they play. The Sri Lankans to an extent. But the Sri Lankan Cricket Board is very closely attached to the Indian Cricket Board.
BCCI, yes.
To the BCCI. And therefore, look, a lot of these boards depended on the BCCI for support in the ICC or for reciprocal tours where they would get some money.
For bilateral series. Yes.
The biggest affected cricket boards were the West Indies and New Zealand. New Zealand because they were bust. They were broke.
Mm-hmm.
When the ICL began, almost all the members from the New Zealand team were playing there or trying to get in there. Yes. Craig McMillan, even Shane Bond, some of those players, they were all,
part of the ICL
It's just
teams.
that the IPL started so soon after that, more players didn't join.
Right.
In fact, Shane Bond and all were willing, because their board didn't allow them to play the ICL. They resigned or retired. They retired and said, we'll go and play the ICL.
Play the ICL, yeah.
Because there was no livelihood for them.
Yeah.
While they played for 3-4 months, and New Zealand hosts very few tours.
Yes.
Not many countries go to New Zealand to play, and therefore New Zealand does not go to too many countries to play either.
Yeah.
So the players, the sport is impoverished.
Right.
In the West Indies, also, it's a board which was bust. There was bankruptcy, there was no money. And the West Indies has a peculiar problem, as I see it, that cricket is the only sport where they come together.
Right.
It's a confederation only for one sport. The West Indies otherwise does not exist for any other sport.
Right.
It's all countries for themselves.
That's true, yes.
So in the Olympics, Barbados and Antigua are competing against each other, or Jamaica.
Or Trinidad and Tobago.
In athletics.
Yes.
And outside of the Olympics, in football, every other sport, they're competing against each other. In cricket, they form this body, and historically is there, and it's got a wonderful legacy. The West Indies cricket legacy is absolutely marvellous,
yes,
and
course.
Nobody would want it to be kind of destroyed. But there are factors at play. Different countries, different people, different interests, different, purposes for acquiring power. And I feel all of this led to a kind of turmoil in the West Indies Cricket Board, which is not something that happened with the IPL. It started from the late 80s and 90s.
It had been brewing for some time, isn't it?
For a long time. From the Brian Lara era, in fact, or the Carl Hooper era. After the great era of Lloyd and Richards passed, and it was building up even then. But those days, the boards or the hosting cricket board would give guarantee money, and the West Indies would get huge amounts of money because they were the best team in the world. The minute they ceased being that, and after India became the powerhouse that it became,
of cricket, yes.
and after television rights became the biggest determinant in how rich a cricket board could be, the West Indies started floundering. And therefore the players found that they were at odds with the administrators at all times, because they didn't get enough money from and support from their own
board,
either from their own local board, which is, if you're in Trinidad and Tobago, TNT Cricket Board has to support TNT players.
Right.
And then it's plugged into the West Indies Cricket Board, where the power center for this term may be in Barbados, or it may be in Antigua, or it may be in Jamaica. So conflicts, cross purposes, yes, crossed wires, all of that. As a result, the players also got into a very confrontationist mode. And, they were always either on a strike for wages and, or some other kind of problem with the West Indies Cricket Board. And then in the midst of all this, the IPL emerged.
Right.
as an opportunity to go and make a livelihood. And therefore, a lot of these players came here and migrated. And the West Indies, as we know now, they won the World Championship twice.
Yes.
The only team to have done so.
Yes.
They are, for this format, they seem to be the best players, or at least, as yet.
Yes.
And therefore, they found big takers. So you had people who became household names in the IPL, Chris Gayle, Dwayne Bravo, Kieran Pollard, to name
Yeah.
a few, Andre Russell,
Absolutely.
Darren Sammy, and so on and so forth. And from the IPL, because it clashed, the West Indies Cricket Board, they had some domestic home series, and these guys, either
Were not available to play that because they were at the IPL.
Because you were getting, crumbs for playing for West Indies as compared to the IPL.
Correct.
And therefore, one thing led to another, and then they played. When the Big Bash came up, they started playing the Big Bash, and wherever else. So they become, in a sense, mercenaries who were at loggerheads with their own cricket board, who were being castigated by cricket lovers elsewhere, but they had their own point of view.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, without getting into the rights and wrongs, because that's a fairly complex issue.
Yes.
But at this point in time, some kind of rapprochement seems to be happening. But remember what happened in 2014 in India. The West Indies cricket team walked out of a tour.
Yeah, absolutely.
They flew back. So that's how serious the confrontation with the West Indies cricket board was.
So clearly it was all coming to a head then.
But the point also remains that the IPL afforded these talented guys to stay afloat, and therefore kind of inspire younger players from the West Indies to play. Remember, the under-19 West Indies team has also won the under-19 World Cup this year.
Yes, of course. And the women's team.
So, without these guys still being around, I think it would have been frittered away. The legacy of Caribbean cricket, which adds so much flavor to the sport, was kind of dissipating. So it's important to retain these players, but it's also important that they represent the West Indies in more matches and more contests.
Correct.
Which is perhaps happening now. There are a couple of players who are still at loggerheads, like Dwayne Bravo, Kieran Pollard. Gayle seems to have made peace, but Darren Sammy, in the speech that he gave after the World T20 thing, was, So it's very complicated. There is no solution. There is a part-time solution which has been worked out. But my point is, coming back to the IPL, is that IPL kept these guys alive, and therefore, in a sense, cricket alive in the West Indies.
Yes.
you
Actually,
can
it
say
made
that
them
they were
such huge superheroes.
You can say that it was done selfishly because these guys have become millionaires while West Indies Cricket Board still languishes.
Yeah.
But remember, there's also the Caribbean Premier League, which has now started.
Yes.
Where the money goes to the West Indies Cricket Board. They've started along with New Zealand, interestingly.
Yes.
The New Zealand Cricket Board is a stakeholder in that.
in the Caribbean Premier League.
So I think that there are issues. I mean, there can be suddenly 20 such leagues, not all of them as powerful or as rich as the IPL, and therefore rob the game of all its players who will be playing only these leagues. Obviously, the administration needs to, and I won't, as a great lover of Test cricket, I wouldn't want that to happen, or the 5-day format, But I'm saying that there is a need to appreciate what this has done, these leagues have done for the benefit of the players, how it's kept them going, and therefore cricket in their countries, otherwise which would have perhaps been, flattened. And work out a formula where you can preserve the three formats, or at least two. If the one-day format is under peril, if it's T20 and Test cricket, and every player, if you still speak to them, they say the Test cricket is the foremost and the highest.
Correct.
And
T20
bearer.
is the money spinner.
And the money spinner,
Yeah.
and therefore great entertainment, and also gives us livelihood. So I think that's the scenario as it exists today.
And yet, of course, there's the struggles that we just heard about, what was happening with the West Indies Cricket Board in New Zealand, and England not allowing their players to play in the IPL. And
they've allowed now. I mean, Joss Butler has been playing for Mumbai Indians.
Yes.
You've got Ian Morgan who's playing for Hyderabad.
Right, but then that's only this season.
So what is happening now, Pooja, is that actually the English Cricket Board, or the England Wales Cricket Board is considering shifting their domestic season, the start of their domestic season, by a week or 2 weeks, so that players can play the IPL maybe half a season.
Yes.
But, there is
some sort of a midway path.
I think there's a lobby of English players who are saying, how can we be left out of this? Why should we be left out of this?
And why should they?
Why should they?
Yes.
And I think there might be some situation where they will probably shift it by 1 week, 10 days, whatever it is, so it allows them to play from, say, April to mid-May.
Right.
Which is still not reaching out till the end of the tournament.
Yeah, but you get a good 4 to 6 weeks.
And also, therefore, then add a T20 league
Of their own. Yes.
Why should the English cricket establishment be left out of this?
Right.
So that seems to be the scenario. But I must mention here, it's a little more complex because while the IPL invites players from all countries except Pakistan, which is for non-cricketing reasons as of now.
Yes.
Indian players are not allowed to go and play.
I was just going to come to that. I mean,
the IPL,
is it really fair that the Indian players...
look at it plainly, it's not fair. India, the BCCI is trying to protect its own brand against any other, because the largest eyeballs, the audience is from India.
Right.
And the eyeballs travel and locate or at least follow Indian players.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to follow your heroes.
Correct. So if other leagues start getting Indian players, then, the eyeballs will migrate there, and therefore the television rights will become more expensive and your profitability will go down. I mean, that's the...
But then ultimately you also want, your brand to have to reach and spread far and wide.
But their brand is the IPL, which they don't want to diminish.
But the IPL is on the Indian players if you're not going to allow your...
Correct. No, so I'm saying that's why I'm saying that's for the Indian players to argue and fight for.
Perhaps if we had an Indian Players Association...
Maybe not. I mean, I'm just saying, see, look, the IPL gives them enough.
Yes.
So if they're hungry for more, then they have to ask for it. Not hungry necessarily in terms of money. But in terms of going and playing and showcasing their talent. There may be a lot of young players from or not so young players from India who are not part of the Indian team.
Right.
And they'll say, look, we need, we can go and play there. What's wrong? That's a sense of livelihood.
Right, absolutely. And yet, each year we've seen that the IPL always comes up with some complex issues, some controversies, and, of course, the underbelly as it's sort of been unraveled in seasons and year after year. But of course, there's lots more to talk on that. And
not all... we can't see it only with the rose-tinted glasses. It's not all...
As it's not possible to
it's
do
not
that.
Possible. So
yes. There is always an underbelly, and there's, the controversies have been in the public domain, but we'll discuss that in our next show. Signing out, Pooja from the Fan Garage. Thank you for listening to the Cricketwala Chronicles with Ayaz.
Thank you.
Cricketwala Chronicles is available on iTunes, Audioboom, YouTube, the IVM Podcast app, and many other podcasting apps that you may like.
Hey man, just help me out, man. I need some podcasts, man. I haven't had a fix in a week. Just need some.
Don't you worry about it. I got podcast galore for you, man. Just go to ivmpodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thanks, man. I'm gonna check it out.